there's this thing. You have keto sauces and gravies. And one of my largest recipes on Pinterest right now happens to be my skillet cracked chicken thighs. Going through the comments, I see a lot of people having problems with it, thickening up properly, or either just taking a long time. So this is gonna be a mix of a recipe video and an information video as well. So this is gonna be a tad bit different than what you guys are used to. For those for the recipe, let's go ahead and dive straight into the recipe, which is the keto sausage gravy. Now, you wanna start with 4 ounces of sausage, any kind. It does matter depending on what you care about your macros being at the end of the day. But 4 ounces chopped up, if you wanna use links, whatever. And essentially what you wanna do is you wanna have the heat high enough for the fat to begin to render. What that means when the fat is rendering is, the fat is melting down, and that's why you'll see people say bacon makes its own fat, sausage makes its own fat, or own grease. Now, if this doesn't happen, you can just help it out a little bit with a half a tablespoon of something like coconut oil or olive oil, because you're actually gonna need that. Now, after you browned your sausage a little bit, toss in chopped onion. You wanna pour your chicken broth in. After you pour your chicken broth, lower the heat down and bring it to a simmer. Then you pour your heavy cream on top of that. Continue to cook it, because what you wanna do is you wanna finish cooking the sausage and you wanna soften up the onions. Now here comes the tricky part, and the reason behind this video is the thickening agent. So in this particular recipe, what I used was a combination of arrowroot powder and xanthan gum. Now I'll explain all that in a minute and what your other options can be, but just for this recipe alone, that's what I use. So pour your arrowroot powder, which is mixed in with 2 tablespoons of water, and sprinkle xanthan gum on top of it. Now you want to give this a minute to thicken itself up, because it's going to happen quickly, but the maximum thickness won't happen in a matter of seconds. It'll actually take about a good, well, it is seconds, but 30 seconds to a minute to really thicken up how you want it to thicken. Oh my God! Before you thicken it up, make sure you put the salt and pepper in there. My bad, I forgot. If I haven't already mentioned, I already have my own keto biscuit recipe. I just didn't add any cheese in with this one since I was doing the gravy. I mean, okay, so I'm not a sausage and gravy person. I know it's a huge thing in the South, and that's where I live, but it just never worked for me. It never did. I never got the draw of it. Like, I can honestly eat the gravy by itself. Of course it's not bad because I made it, but you know, of course I will be biased towards that. But to be honest, I prefer both of them by themselves. I really do. I mean, mostly sometimes you gotta keep eating them. Or maybe I'm just greedy. And that's it. Now, let me explain some things about this recipe and any other gravy recipe or sauce recipe and what your options are when it comes to that. Point 1, typically when it comes to a sauce or a gravy, you start with the roux, which you start with flour and some type of oil or butter, oil, you know, they're pretty close. So when it comes to keto, you know, I remember when I first started, I thought maybe I could put, you know, let me do almond flour or let me do coconut flour and I'm just gonna do that to the roux. No, actually the problem is there's no gluten in any of that. So to try to create a roux with almond flour, coconut flour, sunflower seed flour, whatever flour that doesn't have gluten in it is gonna be a waste of your time and a waste of excess flour actually. So what do you do? First things first, let's talk about if you're doing a sauce such as like a brown gravy or if you're doing a sauce such as, you know, a cream sauce. Traditionally, what people would tend to use is whole milk. Whole milk is about 3.5 to 3.8% fat content. The rest is essentially water. When you're dealing with heavy cream, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it's 38% off the top of my head. So what does that mean? So one major difference between heavy cream and milk isn't just the fat content. Whole milk contains a lot more carbohydrates in it. So that's why when it comes to the ketogenic diet, you don't see people using whole milk. You'll see heavy cream quite often because heavy cream has basically 0 carbs. So within, I want to say a tablespoon, you have less than 1, but there are carbohydrates in there. So the carbs are an issue when it comes to using milk. But milk isn't the only issue because if you're not using a roux, it won't thicken. So where am I going with this? In my keto caramel sauce, what you found was I used butter and I used heavy whipping cream, or heavy cream rather, to create the caramel sauce. Essentially what was being done was you were actually boiling, slow boiling at a low heat. You were steaming the water out of the heavy cream and the butter. because butter does have water, and heavy cream has water in it. You were boiling it out, and I tried to take that same element to sauces, but I ran into a couple problems. Those problems consisted of they had entirely too much fat. Now, believe it or not, keto is a high fat diet, but you can get fat on keto. And you're sitting here and you're trying to have a cream chicken, or the cracked chicken like I have, and the sauce itself has 1,000 calories in it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you use something like 2 tablespoons of sauce and it's 500 calories. You know what I'm saying? That can make a person fat. A lot of people start the keto diet to lose weight. So how can I make that more efficient? Now, you can continue to take that course. It's just if you don't mind, but that actually it'll be a very good sauce. It'll be quite rich, but it'll be super, super calorie dense. So Darius, with all of this, if I don't want to use too much heavy cream and I can't use a roux, what options do I have? Actually, you have a lot of options. The thing is, will you like them or not? One of my go-to things is people will say, not to use cornstarch or arrowroot powder, things like that, because that's something else that thickens as well. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. But people will say don't use those things because those things contain carbohydrates, which is true, but it's not gonna add so many carbohydrates in a sense of if you had whole milk in it and the cornstarch, and depending on how much cornstarch you would use in the process. Not even the cornstarch, but the roux that you use, the flour that you're using for the roux. So what I have here is I have arrowroot powder and I have cornstarch. Now 1 tablespoon of cornstarch is 7 grams. I don't use cornstarch. Now 1 tablespoon of arrowroot powder is 8 grams. Arrowroot powder is what I tend to use. Now, I personally use this simply because of another food blogger by the name of Nom Nom, who gave me the idea of arrowroot powder. And if anybody follows Nom Nom, her recipes are amazing. Because as I said, I was new to this and I struggled in the beginning trying to figure out how I thicken up my sauces. But let me tell you the thing about the arrowroot powder. Let me tell you what I've learned through this journey. Is when it comes to keto, mixing is better than one thing. What I found is mixing arrowroot powder and something like guar gum or either xanthan gum created the type of sauce I wanted, created the type of gravy I wanted. And of course you don't want to use too much arrowroot powder because 1 tablespoon, that's 8 grams. But you're not gonna sit there and, turn the pan upside down and drink the whole thing. Actually, in this recipe, for the entire recipe, all I used was 1 teaspoon. For those that don't know, there are 3 teaspoons and 1 tablespoon. So what does that mean? 8 divided by 3. It's only 2.5 grams of carbs off the arrowroot powder alone. 2.5 spread out through the entire meal. And this particular sausage gravy was split in half. So therefore you have 1.25 grams of carbohydrates. That is not going to kick you out of ketosis. Now, if you're allergic to one of these things, that's a different issue. So Darius, if you're saying that, why wouldn't I just use xanthan gum? Well, this is actually pretty simple, because xanthan gum, which is very, very popular, and for good reason, think of the name of it, xanthan gum. If you use xanthan gum and you use that solely for your thickener, it's going to get very gummy, and it's going to get very unnatural. The texture is going to be very unnatural to, let's say, if you were to give it to a child. For you, it won't be an issue because you know what you did. But let's say you're giving it to your family that's used to a certain kind of gravy or a sauce. They're gonna be like, why is this filmed like this? Because xanthan gum is gonna get gummy and it's gonna start to clump up a little bit. Now, another option you have are things like collagen. What I tend to do is I don't use chicken broth. I actually use chicken bone broth. But I try to get a very high collagen level bone broth. So the collagen will actually help depending on how high I let it go. And if I let the heat go too high, then it'll break the collagen down too much and I'll just lose it altogether. But they do have collagen powder. Make sure you get collagen that's not collagen peptides. The collagen peptides has the collagen removed. You can use gelatin. You can use beef gelatin powder, which is very popular like in our cookies and stuff. You can use konjac powder, but konjac powder does have carbohydrates. A half a teaspoon of konjac powder is 3 grams of carbohydrates, and I don't seem to find that in the store, but I find the arrowroot powder in the store just fine, and then that's only 2.5. I mean, you tell me which one seems the smarter choice. I do understand for people that are new and now they're afraid of carbohydrates. Well, I don't want anything with carbs in it. It's the body's not that sensitive. It's this is from experience. The body isn't as sensitive as you think it is. Now, you want to err or practice on the side of under 20 grams a day, but there are people that do just fine with over 30, and so on. There are some people that can't even do 10, but you just have to see what your threshold is. And in the beginning, 20 is a great mark to start at. So if you go throughout your whole day and your gravy, you just got 1 gram, I mean, you're more than fine. One other thing I've seen people do is actually use cauliflower. They say cauliflower is a great thickening agent when it comes to sauces and gravies. Well, not gravies, but if you're using kind of sauce or maybe Alfredo sauce, something like that, cauliflower. Me, myself, I don't personally want to do that. But I mean, if any of you guys have tried it, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about it. But essentially, those are your options when it comes to thickening your sauces up. And I'm going to update my recipe for you guys. Not the sausage and gravy one, but actually the keto cracked chicken one, to give you guys a better option. I don't know when that'll be happening. I don't know when it'll happen. I'm not saying I will do it by the time this video is released, because I plan on doing this video tonight, and right now I have not done it. I actually have donuts lined up next, so that will be all today. I hope you guys enjoy the recipe. I hope the information was helpful for you. I am Darius. This is Sugarless Crystals, your sugar-free destination of YouTube. And I'm out.